Okay, a massive welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on, Travis.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, just a short introduction. So, Travis is a seasoned executive within the TIC industry, working at companies such as Element, Bio Veritas, Decra, in senior positions such as most recently Senior Vice President Sales and Marketing for Decra, previously Vice President and General Manager for Oil and Gas, Metals and Minerals for BV, and the list goes on. So, really broad background in terms of markets and roles, and we're really excited to unlock some of that knowledge during the podcast. So the first question is, what inspired you to pursue a career within the TIC industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. And thanks again for having me on. So, really, I think, early on in your career, you may not necessarily know what inspires you about moving into a certain industry. And a lot of it is who you know. And so that's how I wound up finding out about the TIC industry was sort of, who I knew around the oil and gas industry. And once I heard and learned a little bit about the TIC services, it was inspiring, as you say, because it's technical services. You're creating confidence where there might not be any. And then, the sustainable market or available market due to the regulatory nature of it, just makes it attractive for a long career. So, yeah.
Okay, very good. Second question. Could you share some pivotal moments or experiences that shaped your professional journey within the field?
Wow, there's a ton of them. But when I just think back around the specific projects and first and foremost, listening to clients and building bespoke programs based on both their project needs and also end users, irrespective of market. Which is one of the beauties of the TIC industry, as I say, it's agnostic to industry.
Hmm.
So some of the projects, that required CapEx investments and building a business case to show return on investment, just over the years have really helped shape the view or my view around, business in general and also relationships, right? Because clients have come to me personally as a trusted partner over the years because they believed that I could take their business to a place that maybe they didn't even know they needed to go, and sometimes they had a need and didn't know how to get there. So I'd say pivotal moments. There's a plethora of them, which is why I'm still hanging out in the TIC industry after almost 20 years.
Very good. So, just on the side of running commercial teams, how do you approach building and maintaining high performance sales teams?
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a little bit different than operational teams when looking at sales specifically. When looking at commercial teams and how to build those, I think number one, you got to hire the best talent for the role, and I think even before that, you got to plan for your business and what kind of sales capacity do you need, what type of roles do you need for the organization. And so hire the best talent for the role, and sometimes hiring someone that may be overqualified for a position to take you to the next level. And then begin onboarding before day one.
Yeah.
I think, just candidly speaking, I think a lot of businesses, TIC is guilty of this as well, as onboarding is not a strength, and
Mhm.
so beginning onboarding before day one is pivotal. And then once a candidate or an employee is started, set clear expectations. Day one is a passion of mine, I would say. Making sure that day one is outstanding for a candidate and for a new employee is so pivotal to the success of a role, especially in sales, right? And so setting clear expectations, and then continuous positive encouragement and feedback is really important. And then finding any and all causes for poor performance, removing them. As a leader, our role is to remove barriers and make our team as effective as possible. And sometimes that's a person. So there might be somebody in the team that that they might have poor performance, and it might be them. We try to set them up for success as much as possible. And sometimes they're either in the wrong role, or they're just not cut. They're not cut out for it. One thing that I also found, very important for a high performing sales team is to have the right incentive plan or compensation plan in place,
Mm.
right? To incentivize the right behaviors that you want. And so that comes back to sort of building your business and understanding exactly where you're headed with your vision and mission, and aligning those things, right? It's overwhelmingly important to do that. And then I guess the last piece, I would say, is monitoring performance and creating objectives for accountability, right?
Yeah.
And in sales, that can be, sometimes very clear cut. It's the results, it's the results that people look at, but there's also activity metrics as well and objectives to look at. So I know that was a lot, but there's probably more. I probably missed several things, but that's the short list from me.
No, spot on. Really appreciate it. Secondly, sort of rolling on from that, then. So, what role do you think technology plays in optimizing sales processes, and how do you leverage it within your role?
Yeah, wow. Especially these days. I mean, AI is the number one term used in 2023. And so, when you just look at technology in general, the question around TIC, especially when you look at pressed margins, right, is how do you of course, do more with less, do more with less. Everyone says do more with less. And so how do you maximize your sales capacity if you've got limited resources and pressures on profitability targets, right? Well, you do that by making your process more efficient, by eliminating waste, and by making it easier, making the process for the client the easiest. And I
Mm.
think that's where a lot of people and a lot of businesses, in my opinion, they might miss, right? I always say, if you make decisions through the lens of client experience, then you can't lose. And so making sure that your client experience, if you have a very transactional sale, if you make that, as automated as an e-commerce platform, and then you make a very complex sale extremely easy because you have a very regimented and standardized sales process, the client immediately has confidence in you. And so it's the process is as important as the people involved in it.
Spot on. Can you share any valuable lessons or insights you've gained through your experience as a sales leader?
I don't know that we have enough time here, Thomas, for that answer. I would say, there was something that I heard recently when part of a workshop with seasoned sales leaders that just rung so true to me, is that in sales, you can have two, what you think, identical sales situations, sales deals, opportunities, whatever you want to call them with clients or prospects. You can treat them exactly the same way and come out with wildly different results.
Mm,
And
mm.
so sales is an influencing game. We can only influence results, right? We cannot manage a client's decision. We can only influence it. And so that's a mindset or a shift difference, when you're thinking about sales leadership, is, there's a lot of science to it, but it's also an art. And you have to play those. And, it's like a batting average in baseball, really. If you're batting 300, you're going to make it to the Hall of Fame. If you're winning 30% of the time plus, then you're probably in the right space.
I guess that's why it can be really difficult sometimes to teach it as well if it's not process and linear and it's more of an art, right?
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, you can do, I talked about standardized processes, right? But even with the most rigid processes, you still have to have flexibility because every person operates differently. And now, when the virtual world of buying and selling mean, there are more stakeholders now than ever.
Mm,
I saw a study last year that said that even mid-size or small-size deals could have seven, or do have seven influencers within a buying organization.
yeah.
And so you've got to manage the people that you're dealing with directly and indirectly, right? And get the indirect ones involved sooner than later to make sure that you don't have detractors that are sitting on the outside of conversations. So it's definitely challenging.
For sure. What are some challenges or obstacles that sales leaders face, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. There's a few that come to mind. I mean, one thing is is really not getting the voice of customer, right? That's one that I think is overwhelmingly important. Having that voice of customer, at the center of your decision making is pivotal for growth. The next one, which I think is right there with it, is not spending enough one-on-one time with the team members, with individuals. And that could be with clients, it could be one-on-one virtually. But the important thing is that we're continuing to grow our people. The strength in the TIC industry and technical services in general is the people in the business, and also our clients, right? So we've got to make sure that we are clearly understanding what's going on with the team individually. And for me, that's personally and also professionally.
Hmm.
Because I think for me, those are intertwined so
100%.
closely. I mean,
Mm.
we say, we spend more time with our colleagues than we do with our family. And it's true. So that one-on-one time is key for success.
Okay. So, can you highlight any notable advancements or innovations that are shaping the future of the tech industry?
Yeah, wow. I mean, I talked about AI, a few minutes ago. It's transforming life in general, right? But interestingly enough, for the tech industry, I think if we think about confidential information and we think about regulation in regards to what we do in tech, there's a lot of things that are changing, and I don't think anyone understands exactly where they're going, but they're moving faster than ever, right? And one that comes to mind that I've been dealing with the last few years while at Decra is, the ADAS systems, or automated driving systems, and how that revolutionizes mobility. And the piece that I think is, we're still trying to figure out as a society, and it's different for every country, every county, every municipality, is regulation and laws around ADAS driving systems. And so we're moving, or we're fixing the plane while in flight, really,
Mm.
because we're going, the transition to EV, the transition to autonomous driving, and all of that is moving at the same pace as laws and regulations. So it's going to be a fun ride for the next few years. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, very good. So, can you discuss any practices or habits you've developed personally to maintain a healthy work-life balance?
Uh, yeah, I mean, the first thing is early morning gym routine. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm up at before 5 a.m. most days. Hitting the gym early, getting it out of the way. I would say starting off the day on a strong positive note.
Yeah.
I've been doing that for almost 10 years, and although I may not look like it, may not have the physique of somebody that hits the gym every day, um, you know, getting your blood flowing every day and having movement is essential for a healthy life, in my opinion. And so that's the first thing. First and foremost, that's a healthy work or healthy life balance, I would say. For work, using those off times, and for personal growth, using the off times and down times for listening to podcasts, for using Audible. There's so many avenues these days to just continuously learn. Online classes and things that don't cost much. It's not as if they're, some could even be free, right?
Yeah.
But using time, like when I'm in the car, when I'm on a plane, when you're traveling and such, or even downtime at the house. I mean, just using those to just continuously learn, right? Stay up to date on current events and also continuously learn. So there's a lot there.
Okay, very interesting. Kind of rolling on nicely from there then. So what role does gratitude play in your life, and how do you incorporate it into your daily routine?
Wow, yeah. Um, Yeah, I think that just talking about sales leadership, you asked about sales leadership earlier. I think one of the things I mentioned is having a 300 batting average, right? I mean, sales, I'm a big baseball guy. A lot of people know that know me. And so, baseball is a game of losing at times, right? I mean, you have to pick yourself up after, striking out or losing a deal, and you've got to pick yourself up, and so you've got to have a positive mindset about everything in life. And so for me, as a man of faith, I'm grounded in prayer, and so that's a big part of my life. And I think that comes into the gratitude piece, because when I don't mean to get religious or anything, but as you pray, one of the first things is we're taught to pray is to exhibit gratitude. And so that's the first thing that comes to mind in any situation, because candidly, it could always be worse. In any situation that you find yourself in,
Hmm.
there's there's always somebody or some situation that is significantly or at any level worse than your situation. And so it's always, for me, take a step back, look at your situation, and find that, wait a minute, this is actually not so bad, right? And so the gratitude piece, I think, for me in general is, it's important mindset to have. And then it comes back to leading a team as well, right? Where, personally, I like to make sure that we celebrate wins, and that might be something, super small that, might be I say super small, I mean, a 5-year work anniversary or something, right? Celebrating those things. Celebrating accomplishments is important. And I think that comes back to this gratitude piece that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's something that you practice and work at like a job as well, especially if you're motivated and high performance. It's that constant struggle of being motivated and wanting the next thing, but also trying to be grateful for what you've got, and being appreciative of where you are, and how that compares to other people that have less. But it's definitely like a job. I don't think it's something that naturally comes to most
Yeah.
people. I think you've got to really work at that. So that's yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. And I mean, in leadership, a lot of times we focus and we think about all of the areas of improvement, right? It's oh, we lost that deal. How do we make it better next time? Oh,
Yeah.
we've missed our budget. We've missed our profitability targets. Those are the areas of all focus, right? It's always firefighting. And so sometimes, I mean, if you get into that habit of only looking at the negative or only looking at areas to improve, you miss you miss wins, right? You miss big things that are sitting right in front of you, that are so positive. And so you can find yourself in a really negative light. So you're right. Even for me, with a German heritage, where we definitely focus on that, where we focus on that, the how do we improve, how do we make everything perfect, you have to take a step back and really realize that things are going pretty well.
Nice. Good. And leading on to the final question, if you could go back in time and give advice to your 21-year-old self, what would that be?
um, there's a lot of things that come to mind, but I'd probably say drink a little less alcohol. That one's probably probably number one on the list. But really, it comes back to what I was just talking about with the gratitude piece. There's been some situations in my career. One, that we could talk about offline, that I thought was just going to be the absolute detriment to my career. And as I look back, it's one of the best things that happened to me. I really thought at the time, this is going to, this is the end of maybe even my TIC career, right? This is something that just transformed me, I thought, in a negative way. And so what I would do is go back to my 21-year-old self and say, pick yourself up faster, and realize that every situation is a learning opportunity. That's really what it is. You're winning and you're learning, or you're learning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
And so, having having that is important, I think.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today, Travis. That was really awesome.
This was great. I really appreciate it. It's great to be on the podcast. Good to be partnering with you as well.
For sure. Thanks, and
Thanks for
yeah,
having me.
hopefully we'll see you again. But yeah, for now it's the end of the podcast. And again, thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers. Thanks so much. Take care.
Cheers. Okay.